How's it going, guys? Welcome back to another video. So today we're going to be taking a look at something I got in the mail a few days ago, which is this USB powered capture card that I got off of eBay for only $16. And before I continue going into more details about this card, I'm not going to sit here and act like I came across this and found it on my own. I recently watched an Epos Box video where he was talking about a similar capture card to this one, and conveniently that video was suggested to me when I was looking for another cheap capture card. And once I did more research on these kind of cards and found one that I wanted, I went out and bought one. So if you guys want to check out his video, that's where this whole video inspiration is coming from. So the video of his will be in the description down below. So yeah, moving on to this capture card here that we have. I was able to get it on eBay for only $16. And if you do a quick search of these, you're going to find them everywhere. They just sell like on Amazon and a bunch of websites. But for me, eBay worked out to be the quickest option for shipping. So with these cards, they're not being sold by a specific brand, at least from what I know, but the one that I went with is listed as an HDMI to USB 3.0 video capture card. And taking a look at the body of it, you can see we have some writing on there talking about what it is, also some text showing where the input is at. All very useful information, we love it. And the plastic that's used for the housing here is just some cheap ABS plastic, but for the price it feels a lot better than what I thought I was going to get. And along with the card, we also get a little user manual and a install and application software disc. So taking a look at the ports on this, all that you're going to be able to choose from is HDMI. So if you have some older consoles you're trying to record with this, then you might need a few adapters to get everything working so you can get an HDMI signal to put into this card. But after you do that, everything will work fine. And that's pretty much it. That's all you get with it. It's pretty self-explanatory, so we're just going to plug this thing in. So with the USB side of this card, we're going to be plugging it into the back of my computer, and after doing so, you're going to see that we get a green LED indicating that we're getting power to the card. So now that that's plugged in, we're going to be taking the other side of the HDMI that's plugged into my PS4 and plugging it into the input on the capture card. So if you're connecting anything through HDMI to this, that's basically the whole setup, which makes this a really easy option if you're trying to plug in a DSLR to this for streaming or for your videos. You would be able to get a mini HDMI to HDMI cable and use this as a budget Elgato Cam Link alternative, which I personally think is a pretty good option considering you can't really find cam links right now. One that I was able to find brand new on Amazon was $164 at the time of recording, and if you go on eBay and you try to find one, it's basically the same price. So the difference of $16 to $150 is pretty crazy if you're just trying to get into streaming. This is definitely a good option if you're just trying to get your feet into streaming and making videos and you don't want to spend almost like $200 on a cam link. This would definitely be a good option for you. But anyways, now moving on to OBS to actually get this card set up, all you got to do is go over to the bottom, click on the plus sign, and you want to add a video capture device, and you can name it whatever you want to, so I'm just going to name it Bruh. So now that we have Bruh connected, you can see we got our PS4 showing up on screen now. And to tweak the settings on here to get the resolution that you want, we got to go over to resolution and FPS type. Make that custom. Then we're just going to make this 1920 by 1080, and now you can see everything is at 1080p. And if you look over at the FPS, the highest FPS that we can do at 1080p is only 30, which is unfortunate because this thing tries to market itself as a 60 FPS capture card, but when it's saying 60 FPS, it's actually saying that it can input a signal of 60 FPS into it, but it won't be able to output that. For the price, it's not that big of a deal. If you do need 1080p at 60 FPS, then this might not be the product for you, but if you're fine with 30 at 1080p, it'll do that and it'll do it pretty well. So we're just going to be setting that to match output FPS, which is going to be 30. The video format we're going to be setting to MJPEG. Color space I leave at default, and color range I also leave at default. You can mess with those and see what works for you, but for me, default is fine. So in the comments of videos about capture cards like this, I saw a lot of people talking about how they had issues getting the audio to work, and for me, all I had to do was go to audio output mode and set use custom audio device and have that set to digital audio interface, which worked for me. I don't know, it might be different depending on the card that you get, but this is the fix for me to get the audio working because it doesn't work right off the bat. But once you see that, you'll have audio from your game or whatever it is that you have plugged in and it'll work all fine. So going back over to the resolution, I'm going to be setting this to 720p, and at this resolution, this is where we can actually get 60 FPS. So this is something important explain to you that you need to get 60 FPS and you don't mind going down to 720p, then you won't have any issues with it. This will do 60 FPS fine. So now that we have it all set up in OBS, I think it's now that we have it all set up in OBS, I think it's time that we take a look at some actual gameplay and see how well this thing can record. So taking a look at this capture card over on Red Dead Redemption 2 on the PS4, you can tell that this card is definitely able to hold its own a bit on 1080p at 30 FPS. And even though we are at 1080p, it still doesn't look as smooth around the edges as you would imagine you would get from that quality. The video quality does feel a little bit compressed. It's not as sharp as it could be, but considering the price, this does hold up pretty well. And if you're fine with the limit of 30 FPS, this is going to be the highest quality that you get, which I feel like is a pretty good option if you're fine with not needing 60 FPS. And one thing that this capture card does really well is the little to no delay that you get. Because for all this test footage that I got, I was playing through the preview screen on OBS, and normally doing that with a capture card, you're going to see some sort of latency and delay with what's happening on screen versus what you're doing on the controller. And of course there is some sort of delay, but for me when I was playing, there was not enough for me to really have any issues with playing, and it didn't really affect any of the gameplay, which is a really good thing if you're going to be using this for streaming and listening to audio. You basically won't have any delay with what is going on screen. So now switching over to 720p at 60 FPS, you can see the image does get a little bit softer looking. It's not as sharp as before at 1080p, which is to be expected. But all in all, the quality still looks pretty good, even for 720p on this card. And the one perk is you're going to be getting 60 FPS when you have it set to 720p. Even though Red Dead Redemption 2 on the PS4 Slim that I have, I don't even think it can reach the 60 FPS. Maybe like certain parts of the map can, where there's like nothing around. But taking a look at it, it still looks really nice, even for 1280 by 720. And now that we've taken a look at both of these cards on their own, I think it's time that we take a look at them side by side to really see what the difference is between both of them. And looking at these side by side, you can see that there's definitely a difference between these two. The 1080p footage on the right is noticeably sharper than the 720p that is on the left. And with each of these quality settings, there are pros and cons, since even though you are going to be getting a sharper image at 1080p, you unfortunately aren't going to be getting 60 FPS. And if you choose to get a better frame rate, then of course you're sacrificing some of the quality and getting a softer image. But either way that you go about it, for $16, this is a capture card that I feel like you really can't beat for the price. And to further prove that point, I'm going to be comparing this card to the main capture card that I use, which is the Elgato HD60 Pro. They're both going to be at 1920 by 1080 at 30 FPS. And I mean, even while editing, I have a hard time telling which is which, because the difference is definitely not $140 worth of difference. Now, of course, the Elgato definitely does have an edge over the capture card, but the edge that the Elgato HD60 Pro has over this $16 capture card is up to you, of course. That would entirely depend on your financial situation and if you feel like it's worth it to get that bit of a difference of quality. And of course, you're going to be getting 60 FPS at 1080p if you go with the Elgato. So if you don't mind missing out on that and being able to use the Elgato software to record, and if you don't want to spend over $100 on a card, then this would definitely be a really good option for you. And even if we drop down the settings on both of them to 720p, we're still getting a decent picture quality on both of these cards. Although in my opinion, the 720p quality on the Elgato definitely has a bigger difference than the 720p on the unbranded capture card, comparing that to the difference with the 1080p video. But even with that difference, I still feel like you're getting a pretty decent quality for the really cheap price of this card. So the other thing that I wanted to test for with this capture card was to see how well it can handle recording older games, since the whole reason I bought this for was to have it in another computer that's closer to the consoles that I have, because anytime that I'd want to record something on the Wii or the PlayStation 2, I would have to move that console from the entertainment center that I have over to my computer, which is just an annoying thing to do back and forth. So now I have all the stuff that I need to record anything on an older console set up in one place. So to get a rough idea of how some older games are going to look like on this capture card, I'm going to be playing Mario Kart Wii, and the footage that you're seeing here is at 1080p at 30 FPS, which isn't the most ideal since this game does run at 60 FPS, but as you can see with both of them running at the same settings, the quality difference on both of them is a lot harder to pick up on. The picture that both of these give are both very crisp, and there's probably just like the slightest difference with quality. I mean, the Elgato does show a little bit more detail on the textures, but the difference between both of these isn't that drastic, and the only real problem between these two and the image quality doesn't really have to do with this capture card, because if you're able to see here on the unbranded capture card, we're getting some weird lines going across the screen that kind of just wipe through the image. But the reason that that is happening is because of the Wii HDMI adapter that I'm using, because even when it's just directly connected to my TV, I'll have these lines show up, so it's nothing to do with the capture card. But with only a little bit of a quality difference on this, and what looks like a little bit more contrast on the Elgato footage, the USB unbranded capture card definitely is very similar to the Elgato when you're recording something older, which is what I'll be mainly using this for anyways, so it ends up being a perfect fit. So quickly, just before we get into the footage of this at 60 FPS at 720p, I just wanted to give a quick comparison of these side by side without anything moving. And if we take a look here, you can definitely see that the USB capture card is a bit brighter. The colors are a bit more saturated. We have the lines that are going through the screen from left to right. And on the HD60 Pro, you can see that we get a much more accurate color for what the game is supposed to look like. The picture isn't as bright, the saturation is toned down a bit, which recording wise is going to be a better thing, since what you want to have is a flat image and a more true image, so you can mess with it however you like afterwards, rather than the USB capture card that's just giving us a already more saturated image, a little bit brighter, which may be a good thing for you if you just like how it looks. But if you're someone that just wants a true image of what you're seeing on screen, then the USB capture card might be an issue for you, since your raw footage that you're going to be getting is basically in a way already edited for you. But yeah, I just wanted to bring that up because that might be something that will concern you if you do buy this capture card. So yeah, anyways, let's get into the footage. And the first thing that you're probably going to notice right off the bat is the difference with the FPS compared to the 30 FPS. Since we dropped our settings down to 720p, we're able to hit 60 FPS now, which makes a big difference when you're playing Mario Kart Wii, because as you can see, everything is just a whole lot smoother, and the image quality does go down a bit since we're at 720p. But when I'm looking at it here, I mean, it's really hard to tell the difference between these two, especially at 720p here. Like, I personally feel like if you brought the cheap capture card footage to someone and told them that it was like an Elgato or something, I honestly feel like they would believe you, because the difference is just like almost non-existent. The only difference between the two is that the USB capture footage feels a bit brighter, but with some editing and whatever program that you use, if you just add some contrast, I feel like you'd almost get the same image here. And even playing a game like this where you're having to cut corners and watch out for things going at you, with the delay of the capture card, it really made no difference since it feels like there's none anyways. The delay was basically not even there, it didn't really affect anything. So if you are in the market for a capture card specifically just for playing some older games with and recording on, and if you're on a budget, you don't want to spend too much on an expensive card, then I mean, you really just can't go wrong with this. The quality that you're getting is comparable to cards that are almost $150 to $200 more expensive than this one. So yeah, I mean, I can't recommend this enough. And with that all being said, that brings us to the end of the video. So in summary guys, if you're in the market for either a cam link or a game capture card and you're looking to spend under $20, don't mind having 1080p at only 30 FPS, maybe having to tweak some settings in your editing program afterwards, then this card is definitely something that I cannot recommend more to you guys. Because I mean, I just think of myself personally, years ago when I was getting into recording gameplay and posting on YouTube, how I would have been like all over this kind of capture card when I was just figuring out how to actually get everything to set up to record and what the whole process was behind actually making videos like this. And at the time when I was just getting started, I had like a Hapag HD PVR, which at the time when I bought it years ago was like $100, which most people just can't drop on something that, you know, isn't making money and it's just like a hobby. So, you know, I just think of how I spent that much, and you know, if I was trying to get started and I saw something like this recommended, then how all over it I would have been. So, you know, hopefully this video helped you out, and maybe if you end up using this card, it might help you start making videos of your own, or use it for a cam link so your streams can improve in quality and whatever else you want to do with that. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I had a lot of fun making it. It genuinely did surprise me what I got for $20, and yeah, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this, and if you did, a like on the video would be greatly appreciated. Also, let me know in the comments down below if there's something that you see in these videos that you think I could improve on, or something that you liked from it. Since this type of content is kind of new to my channel, any feedback would be appreciated from you guys. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I'll talk to you in the next video. See ya.